Recording in progress.
Meeting is being recorded.
Okay, we'll call to order the April 6th, 2022 APCHA board meeting. Cindy, please take the roll.
Okay. David?
Here.
Skippy?
Present.
Carson?
Here.
Allison? Here. Francie?
She said it. I saw her.
She said it.
She's on
Here. Okay.
I'm here. No, but that's weird. No,
We can't hear the... Okay.
How about
So
now?
right.
Nice glasses.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Really picking up the red right now.
I can hear you.
We're just getting the audio here in the room.
Can you talk? Tom, someone.
Francie, Tom,
Can you guys hear
John, can somebody...
I'm here.
We can hear you guys.
There we go. Perfect.
Perfect.
We could not hear you. Thank you.
I hear the meeting.
Good.
This is Tom.
Thank you.
So John and Rachel are out, and Kelly. Okay.
John Ward is here.
Oh, he is?
I'm present.
Okay. I'm John? I need to call your name then, John?
Present.
Thank you. So Rachel and Kelly are out. Thank you.
Very good. And next we'll move to public comment. Do we have anyone? There's no one in the room. Do we have anybody online? Public comment? Not seeing any. Okay, we will close the public comment and move to the executive director's comments.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Matthew Gillen, the Executive Director of APCHA. I have a few things I'd like to just run over today. The first thing, I'd just like to read this message I got yesterday from an APCHA resident. And it says, "Hello, Mr. Gillen. Thank you for your email newsletter. My family and I count our blessings daily that we are able to occupy an APCHA unit at, address redacted, Aspen is one of the few ski towns that has adapted this model, and geez, can we see the difference in lifestyle when compared to our neighbor ski towns. I do have to give a shout out to Miss Pam Gable for her assistance and easy communication with all things APCHA related. She has been a pleasure to work with. We have nearly completed our remodel project to update our unit and couldn't be happier. I just wanted to say hi and thank you." So I just wanted to highlight that, I think this shows that our initial efforts to reach out to the community are already paying off. The newsletter went out this week to all APCHA owners and renters, and we intend to do that 3 to 4 times a year. We're also, as the board members know, we're going to be doing a Faces of APCHA campaign. David was the first to say he'd get me a photo. Skippy was the first one to actually do it. Oh. So snaps
it's
to
one
snip.
email. That's whether the photo's there or not.
Yeah, but you had Skippy had like a letter ready, photo ready to go. So I will be nagging all of the board members who live in APCHA housing to get me a photo and an inspiring quote about how awesome APCHA is, and we'll be reaching out to some other APCHA residents to get that initial campaign going, hopefully next month. And then April 21st, we will be doing our first live chat using Facebook as a platform. We'll be doing that monthly to give people another opportunity to talk to me and the staff. And we'll sometimes have a theme, and sometimes we'll keep it open. I also want to do one of those in Spanish pretty soon while we still have our bilingual staff member before she goes on maternity leave. So we'll be advertising that. And that is what I have. So I think we're making good progress on our communication. And both Diane and Cindy have comments they'd like to make as well. So we'll go with Cindy first.
Can I just, that live chat is like an open office hours kind of thing, or
Yeah,
it's a presentation?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
People can drop in, ask questions.
Right.
Excellent, thank you.
Virtually.
Also, Matthew, I forgot to forward it to you, but I will. I also got an email from Norma, who's an activist in the Latinx community in the Valley, just saying, wow, there's Spanish on the side of this email. Thank you. That really feels like progress.
Yeah, and we made I should have mentioned this, we made we could have done it Google Translate style, where you hit a button and the computer translates it, but we actually paid the little bit of extra money to get a real person to translate it, to, just make sure it was smooth.
Yes, because you've used Google Translate before.
Yeah, I have. And the faces of APCHA, that's also going to be in English and Spanish. So,
Awesome.
poco, we're gonna get there.
Yeah, exactly. This one?
Okay.
This one? This is mine. Okay.
So we do, right now have between 5 to 6 empty 2-bedroom units at Truscott Phase 2 that we cannot fill. There's probably been a couple of them that have been vacant for over a year. It is because the income is so low for a 2-person household. A 2-person household cannot make more than $56,400. That is the maximum for under the requirements for that low-income housing tax credit property. So I just wanted everybody to know that if we're going to try to be more proactive. Leave the ad on our website, and on a weekly basis, we're still going to go through the people who sign up for it to look for people who have got the longest work history. But we're going to try to get these filled as much as we possibly can. But we're bound by that $56,400, and we're bound by a 2-person household. So a single parent could probably fit in that, but when you have 2 working adults, it's really hard for them to fit in within that income range.
Is it technically category 1, or is that its own
It's a
category
specific,
for,
these are actually 60% of AMI,
Okay.
the area median income. And for Truscott, they're also under what was a program during the time when we got those, under a HERA program, which is even higher than what a normal one would be, and we're still having just really hard times filling them.
Are we doing anything, or could we do anything to reach out to more of the far down valley audience? Because I know there are jobs here of that, but these people are probably not even looking because they just think it's never going to happen. So whether it's Voices Unidos or some of these other, to reach people who are living in Rifle and Silton, probably never imagined there would be a place available.
We haven't done any additional advertising. With all of our rentals, we do them in English and Spanish, so
Sure.
they are in both. But it's usually done through our home track system is how we usually advertise these, and anybody who signs up for notifications gets a notification on these. That's why it's so important to sign up for notifications on our website.
Right. It would be awesome to if we could just send an email to.
Good point, Skippy.
Yeah.
I think perhaps the Glenwood Post also.
Yeah.
Exactly. Skippy hit it on the head. Those folks are never thinking that they can afford to live in Aspen under any circumstances.
Okay,
Well,
we will look
maybe
at
ACRA
that.
too.
That's exactly what I
Yeah.
was going
What
to
did
say.
you say?
Of what?
ACRA.
I think
What's
the Aspen Chamber Resort Association, where I happen
It's
to be employed.
It's Allison's thing. Take that.
I think it might be a good idea to pull some of our restaurant members or people who we know are
Yeah.
the lower paying jobs and let them know that there's some housing available.
Okay,
Yeah.
We just
Those
missed
are great
the
ideas,
news today,
yeah.
but I'll see how I can get that out.
great,
Cool.
great. And we will be advertising next week a 1-bedroom Category 4 unit at South Aspen Street. It's on 105 East Dean. It's one of our newer projects. So if
losing
anybody's
that one.
interested in Category 4, 1-bedroom, please look on our website and sign up for that starting on, it doesn't go live until Friday after 5, but that is coming up next week,
How many 2 bedrooms did you say? Did you say 8?
between 5 and 6
Okay.
right now, yeah. At Aspen, and most of the T2 units, I think, are studios and 1-bedrooms. No?
The Aspen Country Inn units?
Aspen Country Inns are mostly 1-bedrooms.
1-bedrooms and studios. Most of our vacancy is coming from the 2 bedrooms, and then we have one bedroom available at T2.
At
Got it.
T2.
Still,
Vacant.
yeah.
Is this the kind of thing where we would go to basically the tier 2 people who qualify, and a single person could get a 2-bedroom who?
That's a problem for us because of the minimum occupancy requirement that we try to fit. And once you do something different in a unit, you've set a precedence, and you have to continue with that. And that's something that we do not want to do. We want to always try to maintain that minimum occupancy requirement.
Yeah.
That's
One-
hard for us. And believe me, we've talked about that.
That's what I
and
was
it's-
wondering, yeah. Because 1 is better than 0, at least it's a slightly higher occupancy, and maybe yeah, ideally the category itself could change, and I think that's the hardest thing to change. So
Right. And we've got about, for T2, there's 89 units that are included in T2, and we probably have about 11 or 12 more years of this, and then it'll automatically go to Category 3.
Okay.
And just like Truscott Phase, just like Truscott Phase 1, it'll be all inclusive, all one type of property.
Just a question, just because you talk about the I'm sure we're going to have to change our numbers for the categories in the next several years with this wage inflation that's going on at some point. What's the process for that? Is it just a board decision?
On every single property, there's a deed restriction on it, or an approval that was done by either the city or the county. We would have to go to the city or the county, or they would have to just make a blanket thing across the board to change them. But that's the only way, because we have gotten inquiries from people who now own some of these set-aside rental units, and they're Category 2,
sorry,
and they cannot fill them.
I'm not saying that the change should be to swap a 2 to a 3 or a 1 or a 2. I'm just saying if a 1 is 38, maybe it needs to be 45.
And that is something that is in our guideline, it's in our regulations.
So
And
that's a
that is
board
something that
action.
we can bring forward to the board to approve, because that is in our regulations.
I don't think it's time yet, but I think, in a year or two when we kind of have a bit more settling after all this stuff, that's probably going to be something to look at.
Well, I mean,
Cindy, can you talk about your AM area median income process that you go through?
That's AMI.
Well, it comes, and usually we're still working off of 2021 numbers, and in 2021, they decreased from 2020. So we kept the 2020 increases instead of going down. We have not received the 2022 rates yet, even though HUD is supposed to come out with them on April 1st. I check on a daily basis to see when they come out, because the maximum rental rates for our light tech properties are also part of that.
Right.
So, and how we base it is, we look at a 4-person household at 100% in Pitkin County. And that's the methodology that we use. And unless the board elects us to review that and change that, I know that Rachel thinks it's too high. She thinks it should be lower. So, right now, all we use is Pitkin County. And then when you look in the regulations, it's a certain percentage of that. So it's 85%, I think, I can't remember if that's Category 2, and it goes all the way up to like 240% for Category 5. Yeah. So, and it's a range between that for each one. So I'm hoping that before the next meeting, we will have the new numbers that we can take forward, and hopefully they will increase a little bit.
Got it. Thank you.
And that doesn't require board approval.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, red is on?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
It's the opposite of the other room.
Can't keep it straight. Quick update on housing policy analyst. I have awesome news. We have Liz Axberg was our preferred candidate. She accepted the role of housing policy analyst. She's currently in Duluth, Minnesota, and is a AmeriCorps Vista, and so she's currently working and has a commitment to an organization, to a nonprofit organization, until July. So I talked to Sarah Ott, and we agreed that she's worth waiting for. Her degree is in economics and public policy, magna cum laude. She has the dream resume. And one of the interview questions was about research methodology, and she just knocked it out of the park. Knows what she's doing. She'll be great. I was talking to Andrew Miller today, and he's going to help with create a training schedule. She'll also spend a lot of time with these folks as well, and probably her first month at APCHA learning home trek and learning the system. So July 13th is when she shows up, and she'll be starting for the first 6 months in a city-owned Marolt unit, and then we'll need to find housing. So we've already told her, look, you're not going to want to find housing in January, so start looking when you get here or before then. So I'm sure we'll come and talk about this at the meeting to see how we can all help her.
Okay. Francie has her hand up. I don't know if she looks like she may have. She may have stepped away.
Oh, there she is.
There she is.
Hand up.
Sorry about that. I had a question about what Cindy had said about the numbers, and I think I missed one of the comments. So the new numbers that you're waiting for, they'll include the house value and the income thresholds for the entire valley. Is that right?
No, only our income levels. The
Just the
rents,
income
the
levels,
rents
okay.
that we have to abide by are for our low-income housing tax credit properties at Aspen Country Inn and Truscott Phase 2. And for those, we do not charge what the maximum we can charge. We charge less than what HUD would allow us to charge. So those figures are just for tax credit. We already increased the other rental rates because that's based on the consumer price index or 3%, whichever is less on a yearly basis. And that's the same with our sales prices, they go up. And CPI went up so much last year, between November of 2020 and November of 2021, that everything increased at 3% because the consumer price index was so much higher.
Right. Okay, thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Just one more, Mr. Chair. I'm really glad Cindy brought up the Category 1 issue. The reason is, I'm sure she's talked to 8 different boards over her career about this issue. But you may have seen emails going around the community saying the city should build Category 1 units. And every time anyone who has ever worked at APCHA hears that, it's like nails on a chalkboard because that would be a nightmare. So we're trying to do some community education around that and even kind of the one person at a time community education when we have that opportunity. And Skippy's helping with that as well. So thank you for that.
I have one more question on that subject now that you brought up Liz. So Truscott is typically work history, but this gives the opportunity, if we're not finding people with long work histories who qualify for a new to the valley kind of employee to get into Truscott in a new way. I'm thinking if Liz has a partner who's not employed, that's 2 people right there, and she could jump, she needs to find a house by January, she could jump in. Is it in a way actually providing some of the housing that we say we need, which is that under 4 years?
The thing of it is that anybody can apply. We go through 20, 30 people. Some people have less than a year work history. We get down to them and they say, oh, we're below this income. They're not. When we start to really look at their application, they're either over income or they're not working full time. And for a 2-bedroom, you need to either needs to be a single parent or it needs to be 2 working adults.
And they both have to work in the county?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I have this stick back just for 1 second?
Of course.
I just wanted to also flag that we have a couple of job opportunities opening up at APCHA very soon. We have the assistant property manager coming up soon and qualifications specialist, which will be posted on Monday, which will be the first job under the new pay structure. Thank you, Skippy. So we're very excited about that. We have a couple beloved staff members who are moving on to other opportunities, so we wish them well. And that gives us the chance to open up again. So those will be posted Monday, and then the other job fairly soon after that. Cool. I just wanted to flag that. And we'll be posting that on Facebook, and we have nearly 300 followers on Facebook now, which is great. So we're making a lot of progress there, and we hope to develop that a lot. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so that moves us to the consent calendar. The only item is the minutes of the March 16th, 2022 regular meeting. Any additions or alterations? If not, would accept a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion from David, second from Skippy, and it's a roll call vote.
Okay. Francie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Allison?
Approve.
Carson?
Abstain.
Skippy?
You weren't here.
And David?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So dutiful of you.
Okay, and so next item is the update on the Woody Creek pilot program.
I can start, but I really want to hear from Alison and Francie as well about the whole program. So it was first of all, on the format, I think it worked really well. We had a moderator, Reverend Wendy Huber from Basalt. She's at the Episcopal St. Peter's down in Basalt. She did a fantastic job. When I walked into the room, I knew she had earned her keep already because it was the chairs were in a circle. I was like, oh, of course they should be in a circle, but I hadn't actually thought of that. So Wendy did a fantastic job setting expectations and running the meeting. We had 6 Woody Creek residents and a few others who also emailed in comments. We explained the program, and I was a little surprised that I shouldn't have been, but I was a little surprised that there wasn't more awareness of what the actual program was. So we went through the program explaining how we'll be, during the turnover between properties, we'll be looking for opportunities to either repair or replace the mobile homes. And there was some concern that this would disadvantage people who didn't want to move out, and we understood that, but we explained that we'll be focusing very much on the people when there's a turnover, when there's a sale, because that's our opportunity to get in there, and they understood that. I think there was some general feelings of distrust and confusion about APCHA's role, what we're doing, concern that this program won't be put to the vote of the Woody Creek community. We explained that we are reaching out to them now. That's the process. That's how we do it. We backed up a little bit and went over how APCHA has actually run through the the city and the county contributing money, elected representatives on both sides. So we're trying to impress upon the community that yes, indeed, they do have options to contribute, and we really want people's opinions and views, but no, there won't be a vote because that's not the way we receive feedback. But it is a program for individual owners, not for a group as such. So we think we got that across, and we have some of the comments up there, but that's the overview, and I'd like to hear from Alison and Francie and Diane what I missed on that, and we can answer any questions. But I think they would like more input, more reaching out. We encourage people to. I pitched tonight's meeting pretty hard, and so it's a shame we don't have more comments from the top today. We stressed that this is an ongoing effort. We really want to hear from them, and we did our best to explain the program and listen to their concerns.
Okay.
Alison?
Francie, Alison, any?
And we can walk through that.
Go ahead, Allison.
I'm missing the one page that had my notes on it, but
you were taking great notes.
Have a reporter's memory.
Yes, exactly. So here we go. I think there's. I would like to also reiterate that one of the quote complaints that we heard was literally, "I don't care what this program is. I don't trust APCHA."
Right.
And so that is something that we need to accept and be aware of and fight through as you are with your outreach. I will never not support you in community outreach, and I think things like this are important for this reason. Then there was a couple of questions that did come up that I think would be great to define right now, so I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask for that to happen. Defining the term right of first refusal, because one question came up, if we don't like the price you put on the house that you say you're willing to buy, can we just go to regular lottery? And I just want to make it clear that that is actually not this program. Every time you go to sell your house in APCHA, they're going to take into the consideration all these same things. What did you improve? What needs help? What are you allowed to earn based on your deed restriction? Here is the price we are putting on the house when it goes into the lottery. It actually sounds like in this particular case with what is being proposed, that number might even be a little higher because APCHA just wants to make it quick. We'll buy it off of you. we'll kind of forget about all the scratches on the floors because we're going to take this place down anyway and just give you kind of top dollar. But there was that question, Diane, you want to speak to this and just clearly define. If you say no, I suppose it could actually just go to lottery, but not for a different price, you know?
Yeah, it's my understanding, and it might be important, Tom, you may want to jump in on this, is that APCHA's right of first refusal is not the choice of a property owner, right? It's a choice of APCHA. And Tom, do you want to talk about how right of first refusal works?
Yes, I'm happy to. Right of first refusal in the general sense in real estate would come about if there was something, it typically occurs in our valley when HOA covenants establish a right of first refusal for other members of the association when a lot comes up for sale. And typically what happens is that the owner lists the property for sale, gets an offer on the free market, and then the owner seller has to offer the property for sale to the whoever the designated holder of the right of first refusal is, and that person or entity has to match the price and terms of the free market contract. So you sometimes see in standard real estate contracts that the parties have to address whether or not there's a right of first refusal that needs to be addressed, because the person under contract might not get it, might not get the property because of that. In our case, it's not really a right of first refusal per se, because APCHA exercises its right to buy the property prior to a private contract, like a right of first refusal, because APCHA holds that right independent of the owner's sale and independent of any potential contract in the market. But it's not technically a right of first refusal, even though we call it that, because APCHA is the first in line to buy it, right? But we don't wait until the owner actually has a contract. We usually exercise that right after the property is listed. So that's how it works with APCHA. We buy a property when the owner wants to sell. The price determination, as has been said, is independent of APCHA's exercise of its right, meaning that the deed restrictions have a formula for setting maximum resale price. We have a standard procedure, but Woody Creek is kind of has its own formula in it, at least as to the initial price, and there are some adjustments. But in any event, you look at the deed restriction, you set the price, and that doesn't change whether APCHA buys it or a third party buys it. So that's what happens. If APCHA, typically we don't buy them, even when the right's there, and the owner doesn't have to make a formal offer to APCHA before putting it on the market. We surface and we know the properties in advance. We seem to know the ones that we need to buy because there's some problem with them. And so that's what's happened. Now, there are other circumstances in which APCHA will use that as a way to get a new deed restriction on the property, meaning that it's an old deed restriction, it's got problems, and APCHA will step in and buy the property, put a new deed restriction on it, and sell it to a third party. And typically that'll happen almost simultaneously. APCHA buys it, and they also already have a buyer lined up. Cindy knows exactly how that option can work because it's done regularly.
Thank you, Tom. That was,
So
thank you.
does
Was,
that answer it?
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
helpful, and I appreciate the
Okay.
detail and how APCHA differs from the free market. And Allison, I'm glad you brought this up, because if we go back up to 30,000 feet and think about the purpose of this program, is that the purpose is to do a test run.
Right.
And one of the things where there were people in the room who got it and thought it was a good idea. They understood, and they actually understood. The sticking point is when APCHA says, look, we know we're going to pay maximum resale value for some circa 1970 mobile homes that may not get that if it were to go to lottery. We're acknowledging that, and the one asterisk is if we have a situation where the owner moved out, the heat got shut off, and the pipes burst, right, and willful neglect, malice, whatever that definition is, we have to keep that asterisk, and it's in rare situations. That makes people super uncomfortable, and I will say that's a good learning, because it says in the future, should APCHA take a right of first refusal? And I think ultimately, I think Matthew will probably schedule another community meeting for this group to talk about folks who want to talk about it. I think for most people, I think the average person will get it. That distrust may make a situation where the board says, no, we don't want you to. And to Matthew's point about voting, right, the board doesn't actually have to vote on this because this exists now. It's board direction to staff is what we'll be seeking. And so do you want us to exercise right of first refusal on these old properties, recognizing that we're going to pay maximum resale on a number of these properties that might otherwise, especially if the market were to turn down, may not get that in a lottery situation?
And we made that point that this is all 100% within our power now, within the regulations. It doesn't need any changes. And if you look at that second sheet of paper, that's one of the things that pulled up that's on the right, 2/3 of the way down, says forum, what are my rights? And that was a point somebody brought up. It's like, what are my rights under deed restriction? And that was just an excellent idea generated by this community outreach was that we should reach out to owners and just have either a session, either in person or virtually, just like, oh, I own a deed restricted property. What does that mean? I was so excited to get it, but what exactly do it mean? So that was a great idea that was generated, which we're going to follow up on.
Okay, and I see Tom and Francie.
Yeah, just to finish up, on the sales prices there's a rumor mill, I'll call it that, at Woody Creek, and I know this because I've got correspondence from an attorney representing an owner, that APCHA has depressed prices at the mobile home park. And that is based upon the fact that the number of homes have not actually sold for maximum resale. As we know, most properties do sell for maximum resale price, but at some of the mobile home parks, because of the condition of the units, there are times when the homes don't sell at the maximum resale price, even though APCHA has set a maximum resale price higher than the final sale price. There, I think, is, like I said, rumor around Woody Creek Mobile Home Park based upon historic sales that have occurred, some of them a long time ago, where people say, well, I know that so-and-so's property didn't sell for maximum resale price. And I think an assumption is made that APCHA somehow depressed the price in those transactions. And Cindy and I have looked at that carefully, and it's not correct. I think that could relate to some of the distrust that is out there. But the fact is, APCHA has always accurately represented maximum resale price at Woody Creek based on the formula that's in the deed restriction. But sometimes owner sellers can't find someone to buy it at that price, and they end up agreeing to sell at a reduced price.
Francie, did you have?
That's it.
Yes, I have a couple of things about the meeting.
I
There's
could-
one
with
person,
this.
Real quick, I think Allison, did you have something for Tom?
So sorry, just still on this point. I'm sorry I sent us through such a big path, but I just want to tie a bow on that combination of that distrust. The fear is, let's say my unit could sell for $100,000. APCHA comes back and says, no, it's kind of ratty, we're going to replace it, we'll give you $50,000. That there's no ramification for that seller. And any kind of communication about this process moving forward, how do we promise, no, we won't undersell this. In fact, you'll probably make more for that exact reason, that the free market wouldn't want to pay this price, but APCHA's willing to. I think just that point when it came up on defining the right of first refusal. How do we promise the community that we won't, because we get first dibs at it, absolutely under market buy that? That's an open-ended question. The second point I wanted to make about what I heard was these unintended consequences of, if you know that your neighborhood is doing this pilot program where you can basically count on getting maximum resale price for your home because it'll probably be one of the ones that should be replaced, isn't that going to encourage you to, get it in disrepair? Or if you're on the cusp, will you purposely put your house in disrepair hoping you get maximum resale price for that? Again, I say this all the time. Residents of APCHA are real humans who go home and live in their, cook in their kitchen and sleep in their bed, and real humans don't want, critters crawling through their walls and all those things. So I hate to stereotype that APCHA residents would let their houses get junky on purpose. I think the other retort to that is that kind of only harms the person who's doing it if it's for sure going to be rebought. So both of these points came up in real time during the meeting that I have since thought about, and I've found that flip side, that comment, but those were the two things that came up that at the time I was like, oh, aha, this is a good reason that we had a conversation with the people actually living through this.
Yeah, it sounds like this was an awesome meeting as a learning experience
Yes.
for APCHA. Absolutely, yeah, good stuff.
Can I ask a follow-up
I think
question?
Wait. Yeah, for Francie, sorry.
Oh, Francie, do you mind, just because it's on this topic, if I ask a follow-up question?
sure.
Great. So for the person or persons making that comment of like, whatever it is, know if it's from APCHA, did we ask any follow-up on like where does that come from? Do we have any sense? Tom had one theory.
I
but...
did. I was actually going to talk about that.
Great. Okay. Francie, I have a question for you. You may have heard it in a previous question.
Yeah, that was one of my points, is that the person who put up the most resistance, when I asked him face to face, what is it that you're so concerned about? What he is concerned about is that they don't get to make the decision about whether or not this pilot program is going to happen. Mm-hmm. That's the closest he came to expressing his distrust, although he was emanating distrust from the beginning. But that's basically what he said, skipping to my question, like, what is it? And it was that it's not their decision whether or not the pilot program happens. And so the man who was sitting next to him, whose name I don't remember, I hope you do, Diane and Matthew, because he could be a great advocate for us, was very insightful. And he's the one who brought up the idea of, are we incentivizing a lack of maintenance on the buildings, which Allison just referred to, which was a really interesting point. And in a sense, I think we could be. If you know you're going to sell it soon, then you don't have the sense of maintaining it and caring about it as you would if you were somebody like Allison, who never wants to leave her place and loves it. So if you're already planning on moving, I think there is a possibility that we could be incentivizing a lack of maintenance. But anyway, the man who brought that up also said on 2 separate occasions, I don't see any downsides to this. This looks like it's only good for the homeowner, the seller. So I think that we should definitely pursue, Matthew, I know you're planning on it, another meeting, but I think we should do it at the Woody Creek Tavern.
Ooh.
Maybe in warm weather when we can sit outside, because then we will get attendance. If it's right there in there, they'll walk over, they'll come.
Agreed.
And it would be great if we could have that same guy there again, because he definitely saw the whole picture and thought, why the heck wouldn't we do this? So those are the impressions that I had. Does that answer your question, Skippy?
It does. Next question would be minimum and maximum allowances for margaritas at the tavern for this meeting.
We could just do it outside somewhere. I don't know.
Francie, could I just jump in for a second, address the possibly encouraging non-maintenance? And we did have a good discussion of that, and thanks for bringing that up, Francie. The 2 points were, one is that that's pretty normal for a homeowner, that if they know they're going to sell, they may not replace the windows or do a piece of major maintenance. The other piece is, and this is a little bit different than the free market, they actually, let's say they're going to sell in less than a year. If they do that maintenance on that item, as long as it's they haven't exceeded their 10% cap, or on capital improvements, or if it's a life safety or energy efficiency thing, they actually get that money back. Because, the maximum resale price, you get more than the maximum resale price if you have capital improvements that you've documented with APCHA. Thanks.
But if you're going to get maximum price anyway, Anyway, I have one more thing I wanted to tell you guys, and that is that on Monday, I'm going over to Grand Junction to look at a company called Phoenix House that does manufactured modular homes, and they are zero carbon. They are pretty leading edge. And so I'm going to go over and talk to him and just visit with the guy and see what he's got. And I think, because I feel really strongly, I've said this before, that if we go ahead with this pilot program, I think whatever units we bring in have to be cutting edge, environmentally forward thinking, not just okay, but leading edge. I think it's our obligation as Aspen and our climate action plan to make sure that happens. And so that's why I'm going over on Monday, and I'll bring back what I find.
I'm going to email you something as well, Francie, that you're going to like.
That'd be great. Skippy.
Local
Thanks.
company. Very, very cool stuff.
And also on that same topic, quickly, I was talking to my son Ty, who just built the Sopris Lodge, the retirement community in Carbondale.
Cool.
He's not at all convinced that modular purchases are going to be less than what you guys call stick built. So I'm going to have that conversation with him, but I don't know about that. It's just one person's opinion, but I'll follow through on that as well.
Thanks, Francie.
Francie, in that conversation, part of it is availability of labor. As someone who's got a house under construction, so you know that, and he knows it. Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I'll put my hand down as soon as I get my act together here to open up this.
I have a question about how this program works still. It sounded like another concern from the homeowners, the residents, were, well, don't you know that this is going to cost you a lot? They were pretty astounded. Like, this is going to be so much money to put a new house there. And we said, maybe we'll have $500,000 waiting to do that. I think it was surprising that APCHA was willing to put money into it. My understanding is what the house that we replace on that lot, that we actually will be selling it for more than the house we bought and removed. So there will be a little bit of recouping. It's not just bleeding money. We'll make sure it's still in the same category.
Right, that's important.
We will not change who qualifies for it. But if we bought it for $150, we don't have to sell it for $150.
Correct. And if you think back to that list of 36 properties that just APCHA said, these, because of the age of these, it's likely, right? We provided a list to just provide a real world example of how it might work. There are a number of homes where if you add, current estimate is $375,000 for a unit plus the infrastructure, site costs, and the installation. There are a number of homes where you add $375 to the maximum resale price. It's still under the maximum for category 5, which is
628,
$628.
something like that.
The $500,000 comes in if every one of the homes we were to replace today of those 36, and every one of them was $375, it would cost $500,000 more to keep those under the cap. So basically, you'd need that subsidy. The analysis that's been done so far is we're probably looking at, 1 or 2 a year. I think the maximum estimate was like 5 or 6. And so that funding wouldn't necessarily be needed, and APCHA has enough funds right now to be able to cover those, because we're not talking about $500,000. We're talking about, this one needs to be taken down by 100,000. Good question.
So this particular program would not work well with a much lower category, or of course without a freestanding unit being, like, you can't replace one piece of a condo.
Yeah, and right, this and it's a good reminder, Allison, because I know if somebody's watching on GrassRoots and maybe they don't watch every APCHA board meeting, this board went through a long period of time discussing how could we do this for every APCHA unit. And what became clear, and even Cindy and I talked to one of Francie's sons who's a builder, that the challenge of standing up, even internally at APCHA, the staffing that we would need to be able to hire outside contractors to come in and do estimates and build and then manage a build, or more complicated yet, hiring staff at APCHA to have a building department, that is absolutely the catalyst for us having gone this direction to what's a more turnkey solution, knowing that eventually with all this learning we're going to get, we still have to revisit the question about what about regular condos and what about regular freestanding homes and townhomes. Thanks.
You should never send me to a public meeting again, because I'm afraid I have so much to say about this. But
That's exactly why we should send you.
I will point out, this actually is agendized to go until 5 o'clock, so this is the right
12
thing.
minutes of Allison time left.
Save 2 for questions.
So, I guess just as a pilot program, it's a pilot program for this very specific situation.
It is, but I will say, I don't know. I mean, Cindy probably knows that we would have got a lot of these reactions, but the fact that the board got to sit through that and say, oh, yeah, how we figure out if, right? It's a question, should APCHA take right of first refusal, or Rachel's talked recently, and we'll probably bring this to the board and see if you want to discuss this. Should we create an appreciation bank to further encourage current owners to do more work on their places? Right, it may be. So I actually think we're learning a lot for a larger program, even though this is the easiest version there probably is.
And I think it's a pilot program for public outreach as well. I mean, I think we've all been kind of locked down for a couple of years. It was great for me to see a format that would work. I think it was great, and that's the show I'd like to take out on the road to other communities.
Francie?
Yeah, thanks, Carson. Diane, would you take just a second and explain what would happen if somebody has a unit that's in severe disrepair, so it needs to be replaced, but they don't want to sell it? So would they then sell it to APCHA and then buy it back from APCHA, or how could we make that work? Because that's definitely one of the questions that came up, and I think it's going to come up again.
So as Cindy can tell you, they can do that now. The 2 challenges of people doing it themselves is they have to self-fund, and if they go over the maximum resale value, they're going to eat that in the future. APCHA's not going to give them credit for it. Cindy, do you want to talk to this?
No, that's.
Well, I meant inside the pilot program that we're talking
Yeah, I
about.
think it would be.
We're not
Using
actually right now proposing that there's a pilot project version for existing owners, specifically because they can do it now on their own. The one question would be, if the board decided you wanted to encourage current owners, the questions would be, if someone goes over the maximum resale value, do you want to bring in public money? And, you know, one of the questions that came up, and I'll explain why this affects this question about public money, someone asked, oh, does the new buyer, someone, you know, we said we would replace the home, put it back into the lottery. Oh, does the lottery winner get to choose it? Absolutely not, right? Because you don't, right? Everybody wants something different in their home, and that is likely to increase the price of that property.
Right.
And so if you've got current owners picking a new unit, and then you say, we'll bring in public money to buy down so it doesn't exceed the category, right? That's a challenge.
Yeah. I guess for clarification, I would say, so let's say at Woody Creek, somebody has a mobile home that they're just really tired of trying to keep up. It was built in 1970 and it's just falling apart around them. So could they then sell it to APCHA? APCHA brings in a modular, puts it on there, and then that person who sold it to APCHA then have to go through the lottery to rebuy it, or is there any way they could have a guaranteed rebuy of doing this program?
Cindy, go ahead.
To me, the only way to do it is that they would have to go through the lottery. The bedroom mix would change. Most of the people there will not be able to afford a brand new home at probably the $600 and something thousand value. So I think that's a lot of it as well. And they wouldn't meet the minimum occupancy requirement. And they would
Okay,
also
I
no
just-
longer be an exempt, because a lot of the original owners are exempt from certain things. We would require them to go under a new deed restriction, and they would no longer be classified as on that exempt list. I don't think there's that many people, current owners now, who would want to go through that, because they'd also have to find another place to live for us to do that.
Okay. I think it's going to come up.
Oh, Francie, you're right. Actually, after the session, I talked to one young woman who's an owner there, and she was interested in replacing her home and was wondering, and it's a good question, and to your point, Francie, it has come up, would the board and possibly the BOCC and City Council want to put in a public subsidy that someone could apply for a grant or some type of loan that would support them in replacing their unit? It's a whole different question. And it's one of those, if you answer it, you kind of have to look and say, well, what would we do for every other APCHA owner?
Right. Yeah, right. Okay.
So we're
So
trying
we're
to
just
do,
going to not deal with it.
we're trying to do the easy stuff in the pilot program, the easy stuff, and then, you know,
Yeah,
when
okay.
when people move, we have an opportunity, and you know,
Yeah,
helping
okay.
existing owners is a whole different thing.
Just trying to anticipate the next meeting.
No, it's a
without
great.
idea.
It's a,
No, Francie, you're
It's a
right,
great
and
question.
it did come up, and I do think that this public outreach, and right, I think Matthew made a good point. APCHA's done lots of public outreach over the years, and it's just been a pause during COVID. It's been phone and different kinds of outreach, but not in person. So that's been nice. But the question has come up. It will come up again. And I think even just there probably are owners who could go and finance this, go and finance $375,000 for a new home. It may be possible. And I know, Cindy, one owner has replaced it himself and understood that he went over the maximum and he wouldn't be able to recoup that in a sale.
Right.
But he still got a new home.
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, thanks. So I think just the whole conversation, I think this is all about public outreach and education. You know, Tom said it, I think Diane said it. This is about, APCHA kind of already holds the cards here with, you know, maybe not a right of first refusal, but APCHA is the buyer and seller in every one of these transactions. And so this is more preservation of stock and recognizing that some of these are depreciating and deteriorating assets just based upon the nature of an aluminum, you know, single wide or double wide trailer. So to me, this is more just about continued outreach, continued public education or continued education. I think this is all about that, plus just the message that we're trying to, APCHA is trying to preserve stock and maintain an inventory of reasonably, reasonably affordable, housing options for people. So I think we've got to do more public outreach.
John, that's also a good reminder. I'll just mention in a greater context for the city of Aspen, probably on the 26th of April, council will see the final version. They've made a bunch of changes and have set a goal number that is not 3,000 units. That city council will see that one of the actions in that plan is sustainability of the housing stock. So, so you've already heard that the city council, while they've not voted on it, Rachel and Skippy have talked to city council, and they have expressed an interest and a willingness in providing some level of funding. Obviously, it's not a formal commitment, and that is a formal tenant in the new housing strategic plan for the city of Aspen. And I know the county's also talking a lot about what they can do on the affordable housing front in support of this. Thanks.
And I'll go ahead and schedule get another outreach session on the calendar sooner rather than later. Allison, would you like to join?
I'll use the 3 more minutes to
Okay.
say a couple more things.
Yeah,
but,
great.
Not about that. I wasn't cutting you off. I'm just watching the person talking. Francie, I'm so glad you brought that up from the beginning. My fear has been the residents who are not planning on selling's reception of this program. So if you bought in within the last 6 years and you paid top dollar because you felt so lucky that you got your name drawn to a home that you knew you were going to have to take on a lot of the repairs because the seller had no incentive to do it themselves, and now your new next door neighbor, because your next door neighbor sells fancy new houses built, and your new next door neighbors got this opportunity for a higher quality home. That's where I can see some of the frustration. The other point is we're talking about these 1970s trailers that need to be replaced, and I think that is a no-brainer. Those will probably get max dollar from APCHA, be replaced, and we'll move on with the program. I think that the other conflict that might come up is, again, these, if someone's selling but their trailer is 10 years old, 15 years old, it's going to be on them. Like if APCHA does refuse it, and it's on them to either make repairs before going to the lottery, or they go with maximum allowed amount to the lottery, and the thing happens that Tom has referred to where everyone on the list passes and they have to take a lower offer because it is kind of shabby, and they're not the original owner. They inherited something shabby. It's even shabbier now that they're moving, but it's not quite shabby enough, so they don't get the option to get that full maximum price. So I think we're using the most obvious example as our go-to, whereas there's, I believe, in that neighborhood, people who would be on the cusp and feel like other people got an opportunity that they're not getting.
One thing to remember about your neighbor having a nicer house and that doesn't feel great. That neighbor is paying more into the metro district, and that's a big deal for some folks that they got that right away. We didn't have a long discussion, but at a prior on a Zoom meeting that we had with some folks from the metro district, they got it, that those people would end up, because it's based on the value of your home, what you pay to the metro district, they liked that.
Like Francie's example, someone who would be willing to do that, they would like to have that replacement and still pay in that way. It's just not available to those people who want to keep living there unless they want to overpay.
Just not through us.
Yeah.
Right. Tom?
What does it mean to pay into the metro district? What does that mean?
It's a utility fee. Cindy, you probably know more about this.
Yeah, they create. They actually voted in a metro district, and the metro district is based on a mill levy of taxes, and taxes there's a certain property tax that goes towards the infrastructure at Woody Creek. And it's based, it again, like Diane said, it's based on their purchase price. And some of the purchase prices were so low that there wasn't a lot of, the Metro District wasn't getting enough money going in because the prices are so low. So when new homes went in there, the Metro District got more money because it's based on the sales price.
Okay, I get it. It's like HOA, but it's a staggered amount.
Right. And you get to
Okay,
actually, you used to be able to take it off of your income tax return. I don't think you can anymore, but you used to.
Thank you so much.
Oh, so just don't forget that not all of these, the current owners didn't all pay the same price for their homes. And different prices, the quality of the homes and their condition and age may have been reflected in the price they paid. So that's a consideration at the same time when they complain that they have a lousy house and don't get a benefit. Well, they may have gotten a benefit at the front end. I don't know. I'm just saying that's a possibility.
Just one last question. So, what's sort of the anticipated series of events going forward, and when do we anticipate this program actually starting?
I'd like to get another outreach session on the books as soon as possible, and but then after that, I would not want to put I mean, at some point we will have to say we've had enough discussion, but I wouldn't want to make that call yet.
Okay.
So I'm not giving you an answer.
Yeah. Got it.
Any other questions for the board? No? Okay. We will move on to continued discussion on voluntary incentivize right sizing. And this looks like Cindy and Bethany.
So what I'm bringing back is a revised survey based on the discussion that the board provided at the last meeting. And the introduction at the top, thank goodness, was provided by Diane, and I think it kind of explains that the more people we have answer these questions, the better for us. So that gives us some direction of where we should be taking the policy on this. What are people really interested in? What can we provide to them to somehow incentivize them to possibly buy down to a smaller unit, or maybe make their decision to move out of the program earlier. So that's one of the things that that I tried to put into this. I'm hoping that everybody had a chance to look at this. I know one of the concerns was not really going into too in depth with the cash incentive. So I did kind of put that on there, but it was basically the last question on the survey, so people wouldn't hone in on that, because that is something that affects the city and the county more than it affects the housing authority by a cash incentive, because it would have to come from one of them. So that was kind of put on the bottom. So is there something missing from this that I didn't get from our last discussion? Is it still too wordy? I tried to keep it to one page because I totally agree. I get some of the ones that the city sends out on a yearly basis. It's like, oh my God, this is so long. I still fill it out, but it's like it's not done yet. So I did my best to keep it to one page. And again, we're going to try to put this in either a Google type format or SurveyMonkey, so it'll be a lot easier for somebody to fill out. But am I missing something?
I think the only thing I had was on the first question, the 1, 2, 3. Are there any townhomes or condos that are four bedrooms?
There are a couple, but I could probably count them on one hand.
All right.
On that same one, if I own a single family home that was 3 bedrooms, I wouldn't know which one to fill in. So, and I don't know why we actually need to know if it's single family home or not. I think for the purposes of this, what we're
So
just
maybe
trying to do
change
is
that to
reduce-
4 bedrooms?
4
Exactly,
plus, yeah.
perfect.
And
4
there's-
plus.
There's no, are there 5 and 6 bedrooms in the system?
I think
Not that
there's-
I know of.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
I thought there was one.
5 bedroom?
I thought there was.
My
There
house
might
is
be at
5
the
bed-
North 40.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
There,
we got at
there's
least one 5-bedroom here.
Where's
a
one?
handful.
Where is one?
North 40,
Okay,
John's house,
okay.
also known
That's
as
a perfect
affectionately
switch.
John's house. Don't put that bubble there, I'll know.
So that, thank you for that. I will definitely change that. John's house is, no.
Are you John?
I love that this is on one page. I think it's great. I think the questions are good. I had a few just kind of minor notes on 2A. I wondered if it would be clear just to say, if yes, what is the maximum bedroom reduction you would consider? Rather than talking and doing that. And then there may be a reason I did not understand, but in 2, the top of 2, if you just struck APCHA category stayed the same. So if it just read, if you're with fewer bedrooms, if you did not need to requalify and did not enter the lottery, would that miss anything? It seemed redundant and confusing to me, but I
Getting
mean,
rid of if your APCHA category say the
Yeah.
same, because people would be like, what is my APCHA category?
yeah, and
Right.
maybe I want to go down or up, but if you just strike that, I think it's the same.
So Skippy, sorry, could you slow down? The first question, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do. I just want to double check what you're asking. Can you say, you said on 2A,
On 2A, we're asking what would we consider, so we're trying to deduce how many bedrooms it would free up.
we'll know that though. It's going to be, so one of the survey methodology pieces is make it really easy and clear
Right.
for folks. So they're going to answer in question 1, and we can calculate how many bedrooms it frees up.
But we actually won't know that if they hit 4 plus. And what
Right.
if they wanted a 3-bedroom? If it's a couple who has a 5-bedroom, when 3-bedroom, one of the things they might check, and it's not an
Oh,
option.
sorry, we should add a 3-bedroom.
3-bedroom.
But there aren't, right, there's like a couple 5-bedrooms, so I don't,
Right.
so I
But I
think
just
Cindy's
wanna-
gonna add a 4-bedroom, so we'll know with the math. We just wanna make it easy for the, what size bedroom reduction is a harder question than what size of unit would you consider?
So if I
Is
was,
that a check all the above?
yeah, and that's the next question I was going to ask, right? Because I may have 2 empty bedrooms, and I'm like, well, 1, 2.
I
I
would
mean,
take-
maybe all of them,
yeah.
but then we don't really know what. So I'm
No,
just,
great,
yeah.
that's a great point. So it could be, so if yes, what size would you consider? Cindy, whoever we work with on the Survey Monkey, we can make that a check. So next to 2A, it would be adding in parentheses, if yes, what size would you consider? Check all that apply.
Yeah, and
Great.
as long as that
Great.
the options go out to biggest bedroom count in APCHA -1, then that would work.
Great, and thanks for letting me ask, because I think the intent at this point is, let's get this out there.
Yeah, 100%.
Really picky
Great.
today.
Got it. Did you have a question on my second strike, or did that make sense? to
Can you just go through it one more
We're
time?
talking about the
Sorry.
actual question, the actual question on number 2.
Number 2, if you just struck, so fewer bedrooms, so your APCHA category stayed the same. So you strike that, so it just reads, a unit with fewer bedrooms if you do not need to requalify and did not need to enter a lottery.
I do think we need to figure out a different way. I've talked to people who, when talking about this topic, who live in APCHA housing, have said, well, I make more money now than I used to, and I don't want to have to pay more.
Right.
So maybe it's if you, well, I guess
That's the
requalify, that's
requalify.
the
It just seemed redundant
requalify.
and
Okay,
confusing.
great,
Yeah.
thank you, thanks
Okay.
for that.
But I also know that one of the things that you talked, well, that's still a question to ask them. But I do know that when we first talked about this, that you felt that people shouldn't be able to go to a lesser category unit
Right.
than what they currently are.
Because if you're in a category 5 and then you took a category 1,
And we're doing, I think this is very informative, and so I don't want to jump ahead to what's the program going to look like, but the skip ahead in the lottery thing isn't decided.
No.
Okay.
complete on that one. Next question, and this may be overly specifying, maybe it's just implied, but I wondered in 2C, instead of saying location, do we need to say better location? Instead of parking, do we need to say additional parking? I know we're looking for page inches, but I'm just, is that clear or is that not clear to people? Or preferred location, do you know what I mean?
I think that's, and I mean, that's,
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Francie has a hand up.
oh, Francie?
In terms of Skippy's suggestion that we leave out if your APCHA category stayed the same, is that what you're suggesting, Skippy?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to make it less confusing. And when I read it, that piece was confusing for me because there might be a category change that I want, and I thought that you do not need to requalify means that your category stays the same. So it seemed redundant to me.
It does mean it. So in other words, if you're asking somebody who has a 4-bedroom, would they go down to a 2-bedroom? So they're going to have to be paying the same thing for a smaller unit?
No.
No. It would just say, would you be willing to move to a unit with fewer bedrooms if you do not need to requalify and you do not need to enter a lottery? So that's all the question.
So the amount that you pay could change without having to requalify.
Right, exactly. It's just that because your income has changed or whatever, you don't have to requalify.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm kind of behind the game here. Is this only for units that are owned?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all this is for?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just to leave that in. I mean, and as we get into the discussion, if somebody did want to move from a category 4 or 5 down to a category 1 or 2 and could qualify the lower category, great, right? But I wouldn't necessarily want it to be, a higher category and then moving to a, $100,000 house, category 1 or whatever.
Yeah, no, agreed. Agreed. Okay.
Okay. And then, so we've got, Skippy talked about the change on 2C for location. And then better location, preferred location, and then
Additional parking.
Additional parking.
Does it need to say that? Do you guys think, or is it
additional
implied?
parking, underground parking.
I think it kind of makes it, staying
Yeah.
generic allows us to not
Captures
Don't
that.
promise anything.
do 3
Yeah.
for each.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
Is there supposed to be a circle on that final choice? Certain amenities, garage, quieter, blah blah blah. Is that one of the choices, or is that an explainer?
That was probably more of, well, and some of these, there'll be a line if there's anything else that somebody might want to add. So it was more of is there anything else that you might be willing to consider? For example, a garage, quieter, washer dryer in the units, things like that. So some of these are going to have where they can add comments on it too,
Yeah.
that I
Great.
didn't put in
So
there.
there'll be a comment after that rather than a
Yeah,
bubble? Okay.
yeah.
And then the last one I had at the very top in the preamble, which I think is great to have and concise. We described this as a completely voluntary program, and I understand the intent. Just wondering if it should be an exclusively voluntary program, because you could have a completely voluntary program and another non-voluntary program. And I didn't know if people would read into that and think, I'm still a little bit nervous because we're trying to tell them like it's only if it's voluntary.
Just help me with how would that word?
Oh,
what was
I'm
the
just
other
wondering
word?
about changing completely to exclusively, just to make it clear. I don't know if that's necessary. Just a thought.
I'm not sure it does.
Yeah,
We'll just
I think
delete.
Delete
Well,
at
no,
all, yeah.
here's the thing is, it bends over backwards,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is the first communication. So for some people, they may not have seen mention in the paper of this, or, right, it may be the first they're seeing of it, and so we're trying to honor the board, right? You all talked about that it's voluntary, and you passed a resolution, so wanting to honor that and just kind of bending over a little more backwards than probably we have to.
Right. What I'm saying is, I think in my mind, the use of the word exclusively does that more. Does that make sense?
Versus completely.
Versus completely.
Yeah, I don't know, right? And it's interpretation, so
Yeah.
I'm just saying I wouldn't, but maybe other people do.
Well, yeah. Just so you have why I even thought of that. It just completely says that this program's completely voluntary. It doesn't say there won't be another program that's not voluntary. So exclusively says this and any other one are voluntary to me.
That's dark.
Just telling you, that's how I read it. I thought someone's going to still think that guy who said, if it comes from APCHA, I don't believe it.
We should put this program. No, now I understand. Sorry, Skippy. I didn't understand. Thank you.
Any other thoughts or additions on this, Allison?
When I was pretending to fill it out, question number 2, would you be willing to move? Like if I was a no, I would say no, and then it starts saying what if, what if, what if. I feel like I would say like, actually, yeah, in that case. So either have to go back to 2 and switch it to maybe, or you might be getting a ton of no's to number 2 who also say, but I would for money, So I don't know how to phrase that, like maybe later.
So that's a good point, because what we should probably do is, well, here's the thing is, how this will work online, right? Because you won't actually even see A and B.
Yeah.
So what'll happen is it will actually skip you to, if you say no, it'll skip you to 2C.
Mm-hmm. That's scary to me, because I think there's people who think no without having any idea that there's some incentives on the table, and they'll never see those.
No, they'll see them. What happens is, so the survey will go, if you answer yes, then then after 2, you'll go to 2A and 2B. It's hard to put skip patterns on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. So how it will work is, and then if you answer no, you will go to 2C is what your next question will be.
Does maybe not go to A or B?
Maybe I would go to A, B, and C.
Great, okay.
Yeah.
This is a good question, though. So if you say no to 2, and then you fill out nothing in C, like nothing's going to get me to move, that's fine. But if you say no to 2, and then you fill things out for 2C, we'd still want to know 2A and 2B. So will those come up after that in that tree?
No, this is a good point. I think as we get into the creating the survey, because you also brought up another good point, which is even for the people who answer yes, we probably want to know what incentives they may be interested in. Would you be more likely if? So I think what we can definitely do is, and I'm not sure who we're going to get yet to do the survey, to create the Survey Monkey, but we'll be, and we always internally work through them. I get it. I'm with you.
I would love to volunteer to be on the test run of that as well, if that's appropriate. My only other comment is, I guess I see how this would work, that probably a page would come up with this final question. If you can scroll down, I would either want that to be 8. I don't want someone looking at a form and being like, okay, I finished it. I want that to be a real question, number 8. Is there anything else? Because thank you for taking this direction from last meeting. We wanted the open-ended question. We want to know what you are waiting, what would make you jump that we haven't thought of. So I think this is actually one of the most important questions, and I didn't want it to look like a thanks for your time kind of moment, because I actually didn't read the top or the bottom at first, because that's how I skim.
Yeah, you're right. And there'll be 8. There'll actually be question 8, and separately will be question 9, and they'll both be open-ended.
Okay, thank you.
And you're right? They're not going to be 10,000 responses to this. It'll be important to be able to read through them, and we're going to learn stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And just to go back to one other point that Allison had made is the point about that this does not determine the program. I actually think you'll probably, before implementing, you may need to do some more either community outreach or a focus group or another survey, and maybe all of those.
Great.
So, thanks.
Sorry, the last. Are any of these required or all of these not required questions? The when it starts to get into your expenses and your finances personally, especially with that distrust piece. I know we have a disclaimer up top that this is going to be anonymous. I think some people might want to skip 5 when it's asking them about their personal spending.
We'll probably add a prefer not to answer. on there.
Well, I don't think they're gonna
I just
have-
think people think APCHA's out to get you enough that maybe this whole like innocent survey is actually finding out, oh, you can actually, you don't qualify anymore. Look how much you spend on stuff. You know, I just think it's sensitive enough that I want an out without us losing that person's opinion altogether.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would want to, I think they'll be incentivized to answer it because they'll want us to know it costs a
And frankly,
lot.
those are costs of ownership.
I mean,
Exactly,
yeah,
yep.
There's no prying on that. We can look up HOA dues.
Right.
You can figure out what somebody's electric bill is.
Oh, no, we would not do that.
And we can, we can probably, instead of adding a circle that says prefer not to answer, which may encourage people not to answer, is simply allow them to go to the next
Yeah.
question without forcing them to stay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, they won't, it's something that they're not gonna have to be required to
Thank you.
answer to go
Perfect.
to the next one. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the survey? So I've
Is there a
got,
lawyer in the room
Timothy's
on my
present.
question?
so Cindy, are you clear on those?
I believe so, yes, but, and again, we do want to try to get this out as soon as possible.
Yes, please.
I can still try to email it to everybody just to say, take a quick look, did I miss something? Before we get it out within the next week and a half.
I'm comfortable with you.
I would love to look at it again.
Okay.
And do we have
And
a?
I'll try to figure,
Necessary.
and honestly, we try to do samples.
Yes,
Say, let's
exactly.
see what, if this goes to the right one or whatever.
I
We'll just
nominate
say, Allison, fill
Allison
this
to be
out and
our
see if
last
this works.
review.
Yeah.
Is there a paper option for those people who get intimidated or don't have an email on record or anything like that?
That defeats the whole point.
We're really trying really hard not to, in fact, we are starting on the 18th, not only accepting paper, only reviewing paper qualifications, one day a week. So we are really trying real hard to push people into using Home Track.
Right.
We have a scanner in the office, we have a computer in the office, we will help people learn how to do that. We'll train people how to do that if they don't have a computer at home. So to allow somebody to just come in and fill this out, we really don't want to go that way. We
But if
really want to train these people to start doing things online.
I was just going to ask, the library is an amazing resource for
Yeah.
everything, makerspace, computers, blah, blah, blah. Could we have like a partnership with them? If someone really can't do it, they can go in and get a tutorial on one of those computers on how to
There's
do
a
it?
computer in the APCHA office, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody
Yeah.
couldn't fill it out, they could, I'm assuming they could come into the office, sit at that computer, and if they had questions, somebody
Ask her
could
to
help
do it.
them walk
They can
through it.
also go to the library computer and
Yeah.
they can pull up Home Track as well, and they
Right.
can take some of the YouTubes that we have so that they can learn a little bit more how to do it as
Well, they're
well.
not gonna know how to get
So
on
they
YouTube, but-
can use other computers on this. They don't have to use their own personal
Right.
computer.
But if it's just like a
so-
human who could stand over their shoulder and say,
Yeah.
That's what they do at APCHA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
But I think it was more how we are reaching them, not necessarily how they fill it out. Do we have homeowners who we don't have their email address, in which case they will not receive this survey?
Yes, we do
So
have
how do we
homeowners that
reach
do not
them?
have emails.
Yeah.
If you do mail
And I'm not sure if we do texts for them, or if we have the ability to send out texts. I know that was one of the things that we wanted to work with Home Track. It might have been that wasn't part of the first program because it was a lot more expensive to do that. I'd have to
think
check
Maddie
with
knows.
Andrew. Bethany might know, and I know Bethany didn't really want to talk. But if she's still
Maddie may know.
on, because she has a really bad cold.
Hi.
She has a really bad cold.
We have limited capability to send text messages, but not necessarily in mass quantities without an expense associated with it. That helps.
How many mailers would it be if we sent in the mail for each homeowner we don't have their email?
We would have to pull those, we would have to do a search
100?
on
Oh, that's
that,
not
which we
bad.
could.
That's
Yeah.
not bad.
About how many?
It's not bad at all.
Okay, full all the things.
That was first of all, I have folded thousands of mailers. Thousands, tens of thousands. So I know what it's like. But I'm saying it's a smaller number than I thought it would.
Francie?
I'll tell you, because we did a lot of work with this with our affidavits, because we wanted to try to hit absolutely every
Yeah.
single
Right.
person.
Yep.
And we got it down to missing one.
Amazing.
Wow.
And that's it. And we actually had Bethany and Maddie going door to door on some of the last ones and putting it on their door.
Who was the only Highlander?
It's going to be it's an ongoing compliance issue. So, but yeah. So we try to do our best to get the information out there.
Yeah, and I think
we're hoping that when we do send this out, we'll do an article with with both papers, so they'll get that out there as well.
The other piece too is it is important that this only goes to owners, right? So we don't want people who aren't owners answering this. And it is, like Cindy said on affidavit, it's not as important to get every single person. The results are directional and informational, not determinative. You guys are the deciders.
Francie?
Actually, Diane just said what I was going to say, so I'll just lower my hand. Thank you.
Sorry.
But somebody needs to mute their system at home.
We got it.
We got it.
Okay,
Maddie got him.
All right, thanks.
Thank goodness for Maddie.
Okay. And, I guess, so we will move on to Board of Directors comments. So we'll start online here with Francie.
The only comment I have would be about the pilot program, just to stress the idea of really researching what kind of units we're going to install, both from design perspective and from zero carbon and, I don't know, everything that we could possibly do to make it exemplary. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Francie. John?
No comment. I guess I was going to update a little bit on the fireplace housing. So the fire district is moving in firefighters. We had 15, I think, actually 14 out of the I think 16 units. So we have 2 vacancies. Police have already, Aspen Police have already inquired about them. The interesting thing is when we did the survey 2 years ago, people wanted bigger units. Maybe they got APCHA housing or moved on. Now we're a glut of, we wish we had more smaller units, more 1 and 2 bedrooms. And I think I read somewhere today, somewhere else, and it might have been in the paper based upon the Burlingame, or based upon the lumberyard stuff. But it seems like 1 bedrooms, people want to be able to move in, live by themselves. We couldn't get people to take roommates in some of them, so that's the reason why a couple of our units are vacant today. But I'm excited for that. They're ahead of schedule, and people will be moving in July, so it's good stuff.
John, can I ask a really quick question on that, whether the construction is done yet? Do you have your certificate of occupancy yet on that?
No, construction won't be done. They're finishing up. There's still a number of punch list items, but July is our projected move-in date from FCI, who's done a great job as a contractor.
Great, thank you.
I'm impressed with them.
Sounds like an opportunity to recruit
firefighters.
Firefighters.
Yeah.
Or once you have single firefighters living alone, you might start getting couples in a year or 2 here.
Then you have a calendar.
Is that personal experience?
Don't know any.
Thanks, John. Allison.
Cindy, I'm so glad you brought up the lower income units that we have available. That was my comment over the last couple of weeks. I've been approached multiple times, from my role in ACRA, from employers, but also from some employees, people who live in town, that our salaries have gone up 20% in the last couple of years. Our rates are set to go up. Income rates are, 3% or whatever it is, the magic formula you talked about at the beginning of this meeting. I always returned with the question of, well, do you think that we should then be converting units to higher categories, or do you think we should be allowing more earnings per category? So I think it's something to think of, because if we always chase the economy, then I think we'll always be behind. So it does sound though, like you said, changing a category of a unit is way harder than saying category 1s can now earn up to $70,000 a year or something. So that's a whole nother undertaking. Maybe a new analyst would have a fun project of how many units, how many applicants do we have on these units that would then qualify if it was a Cat 2, if the category went up or down? Because I don't know that everyone will always make as much money as they're making now, or that I think if we reach out to some single parents who have no idea that this is available, I also think this is more of a rental issue than an ownership issue, since it doesn't really matter that your salary went up 20% if you already were in APCHA housing. Or maybe the grace period for requalifying. Right now, if you earn too much for your category, you're bumped out in a year. Maybe you get bumped out in 18 months instead.
You can also make 120% more
than you were
before
already
that would
making.
even kick in.
120% more than you made?
No, 20%.
Oh,
20%.
Holy cow.
It's,
You can make 120%.
It's 20% more.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there's
that
little
kicks
things
in.
we can play with that are, we're not doing full on, like I remember when APCHA did just change, definitely the system for figuring out how much each category can earn. And so to do that all again when everyone's about to, I don't know, if something changes. So, but I have heard that. I want the community to know that we are aware that it is hard for a couple, even who works at Starbucks was the example I was given, a boyfriend, girlfriend working minimum wage hourly was overqualified for a 2-bedroom unit that was available.
When did the new area median income numbers come out?
April 1st.
They were supposed to April
Hopefully.
1st, but they haven't come out yet.
It checks every
Right.
day.
And we also met with some people from Aspen Country Day, and their teachers make too much for our category 1 and 2s. So they were wondering how this can do it. So it's across the board throughout the city of Aspen and Pitkin County that we need to look at this and readdress this.
Okay, but that does essentially reflect that if the whole community is making more, that Cat 1 will naturally go up. Your earnings will be allowed to go up.
And usually it's just been gone, it's based on the AMI. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens this year.
Yeah.
And I think once we have those numbers, we can decide on how to address this issue.
But that should impact the trust cut numbers as well, right?
It should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully if it goes up enough.
Right.
Yeah.
I think my last comment would be when people speak about seasonal workforce, just a reminder again that we're all real humans who are passionate about this paradise that we live in. And just because your work might be seasonal doesn't necessarily mean that you are looking for seasonal housing. I think a lot of our seasonal workforce want to be full year-round residents of our community. So when I see that pushed and encouraged over real 12-month leases, I feel sorry for the people who put so much time into becoming this community and then are told, well, you should probably move come September.
Thanks. Skippy?
Yeah, I didn't have any comments, but just to that point, I think the answer has to be the first one where we kind of change the category. If we just eliminate a category, then we're compressing that lower end and we're kind of doubling the competition for category 2s. Category 1 to me, all it means is the lowest rung of workers in this town, economically speaking. And so if that moves, we need to move. I don't think this is the time for that because it's just like with the Great Resignation, the job shift, the wage inflation, the inflation, it's just too fluid at this moment. But Rachel has pointed out a few times that the starting salary for Wendy's in Glenwood Springs, $18 an hour, and I did the math, and it's like $400 less than the cap on Category 1. So does there need to be a shift? Yes. Time? Probably not, but I think moving that so that we do continue to serve the population that is most in need is important.
Thanks, Skippy. David?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting what's going on in APCHA right now compared to a year ago.
Yeah.
When I first came on this board, there was a lot of not much. There's a lot going on right now with the staff, with what Matthew's brought to this, and definitely kudos to you guys for the hard work you're putting in. It's very exciting to see this, to actually see outreach. If you recall, we had a whole plan to do outreach. COVID went away. But this is even better. I think this is better than what we'd all talked about at that point, and a lot more buy-in from everybody. So just congratulations to everybody for great work.
And the main difference on the board since you arrived is you're here now.
Hardly.
Great. And I do not have
Unknown
any comments
caller.
tonight.
White.
So,
Scam likely, sorry.
There's like a bantha. What are
Yeah,
those things called? That's gonna
It's a
plow
hunting
through the
horn,
door?
sorry.
so let's see. I will take a motion to enter into executive session if someone wants to read the motion there on the agenda.
I will make a motion to enter into executive session to obtain legal advice from APCHA's attorney in the city of Aspen attorney, Jim True, sitting in the audience, in accordance with CRS 24-6-204, 4 and B. Those are parenthetical. I don't know if that matters. I've never done this before. For a conference with the authorities and city of Aspen attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions for the legal case in the Centennials or Owners Association versus APCHA. Case number 2015-CV03158-2.
Tom?
I would suggest that you add a reference in the motion to subsection 4, E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations.
So that would be CRS 24-6-4024B and E.
Correct.
So,
And do you also
Added.
have to invite Jim True and Sarah Ott and probably Diane Foster in?
sure. Does that happen in the motion too?
I'm not actually an APCHA employee anymore.
Okay.
Does that happen in the motion as well, or is that separate?
It can be included in the motion. I'm not
Got
sure
it.
it's necessary, but yes, you can
And
do that.
I
So
would
we'll-
love to cordially invite Jim True, Diane Foster, and Sarah Ott of the City of Aspen to participate in our executive session.
All right. So then we need a second for the amended motion.
I'll second.
Second from Francie, and it's a roll call vote.
Okay. Francie,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Skippy,
Yes.
Carson,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Okay.
So we need to stop everything to let GrassRoots kind of close up and everything for about 5-10 minutes. Take a
Yeah.
break for
So-
about 5-10 minutes.
We'll take a 5-minute break and
Great.
reconvene.
Recording stopped.